I was raised to believe that girls could do anything. And my mother told my sister and me stories about wonderful women who had accomplished great things. And we were told about Charlotte Whitten, who said, you know, a woman has to be twice as good as a man to be thought half as good, but fortunately that's easy. And yet, and for me, and when I was at school, I was smart, and so girls get praised at school for being smart. I was, as you heard, the first girl to be elected student council president at my high school. But I think it was when I was at university that I began to see that there was a difference in status. Sometimes people ask me about my political career and how it was different from that of boys. I didn't get involved in campus political party clubs because they weren't very congenial to girls. You were welcome to belong to the young Tories or the young Liberals, or I don't know if there were any young NDPs, they all seemed old at the start. Just kidding, just kidding. But you were welcome if you wanted to make the coffee and if you wanted to go and work in election campaigns. But the people who got to be executive assistants in Ottawa, I knew a lot of young men great smart guys that went off to be EAs in Ottawa, that was boys, not girls. Young men, not young women. And so if you wanted a political career, you had to be something different. I remember as I was getting close to graduation and, you know, applying for graduate school, and how all of my women friends would talk about the kinds of questions that they would get if they were interviewing for high prestige fellowships. You know, well, what are you going to do with it? Are you just going to get married? Are you not going to go anywhere? And of course, Rhodes scholarships simply were not available for women. So every time somebody of my generation parades out a Rhodes scholarship as a source of pride, it aggravates me because the women of that person's generation were not eligible. It was about 7 years, I think, after I graduated from university before women became eligible for Rhodes scholarships. You think of things like Skull and Bones, the secret society. Yeah, I mean, women were not allowed into those organizations. You began to see that. And you began to understand that doors that could open up networks and opportunities for advancement professionally or politically, if you wanted to go into it, simply were closed to you. And so I guess I had my Obama moment or Obama moments in terms of my own membership of a group for which the doors were not always open as a young woman in university. And it's funny because I sometimes think that I made the decision to go to graduate school not because I particularly wanted to go to graduate school, but because I wanted to prove that I could. And again, that can sometimes distort your ambitions. If you feel you have to make a statement, you may often try to do something which is not what you would have done if every option had been open to you and you didn't feel that your choices in any way reflected on what it was possible for someone in your group to do. Now, in my generation, we were told that if you wanted to have equality, you had to be good. And so women of my generation went about leaping tall buildings in single bounds and discovered it wasn't enough to be good. You could be brilliant, and it simply wasn't enough. It's interesting. In business, there are quite a number of studies now that show that companies that have significant numbers of women in their management structures do better. They have a better return on their assets and less problems that come from excessive risk-taking, which appears to be a problem that occurs in highly male-dominated decision-making structures. And you know, it's interesting because many men are not comfortable in all men decision-making structures. And sometimes we do a disfavor to men in assuming that all men are kind of, you know, the stereotype of the worst things about men. And in the same way, I wouldn't want to be in an all-female decision-making structure. I think that each of the genders, for a variety of reasons, some of them may be intrinsic, some of them are social, we bring certain perspectives, although there's as much division and difference within each sex as there is, more division and difference within the sexes than there is between the sexes. So when I say that, I'm not saying this in a kind of a snide way at all, but simply that research shows that this is the case. And yet, women still are dramatically underrepresented on corporate boards. What is more, Nestle, for example, a company, we all probably use their products. They make a great yogurt that I buy in France. 70% of the products that they sell are sold to women, but there are no women on their top 25, in their top 25 managerial positions. So I did not want to make a career out of being a former prime minister. When people are always so diplomatic, you know, and when she retired from public life, you know, Some people, to paraphrase Shakespeare, some people choose retirement, others have retirement thrust upon them. But I discovered that having been Prime Minister was something that meant a lot to a lot of people. I always wanted to do honor to it. I don't have a parliamentary pension, so I had to earn a living, but I resisted offers to sell Vegematics on television, even if they do make julienne fries. But so I wanted to do honor to it, but I came to understand that the visibility of women who have broken through is extremely important in changing the landscape from which people determine how the world works, and particularly how young people determine how the world works. And so I have tried very hard throughout my life, since politics, to remain visible while doing constructive work in the promotion of democracy and the advancement of women. I really think that we need to stop being polite. We need to stop hoping that that women are going to get their representation. We need to stop, if we go at the rate we're going now, it'll be another 4 generations before women are 50% in Parliament. And that's assuming that there aren't terrible intervening variables that will arise because women are not there saving the world from itself. And now you may say to me, Kim, but women are so great, and if we have so many women in politics, might they not lose those very qualities that they have that make them different, and won't they just become like the men if they're in the corporate world and if they're in Parliament? And well, if that happens, sue me. I'm prepared to risk it. So I'm throwing this challenge out to you and to Equal Voice and to all of you who care. The solution is within our grasp. We could simply redesign the constituencies of this country, and if someone, as some budding law student no doubt will, makes a charter challenge that there's somehow gender discrimination, I'm not quite sure how they do that, but there is a provision in the charter that says that gender discrimination that is discrimination to rectify an old grievance is acceptable under our charter. And in the long run, it may turn out that this would protect men by guaranteeing that, because as women get to see, as people get to see women in politics, they may kind of be edging towards having more women than men. This way, no more arguments. And so, I want to say to you that we need to create a political system for all, a parliament where women are not just represented, but where finally, and once and for all, we have an equal voice.